Freddie mumbled. He jumped over to the mirror. He looked at himself. He really felt like a green kangaroo. It was time for the play to begin. Freddie waited backstage with the 5th and 6th graders who were in the play.
Why are there not more African-American males in teaching? Now, why are there not as many African-American males in school? There are a lot of reasons, a lot of societal reasons, but I would say that the thought that comes immediately to mind is I don't think that they see this as an opportunity. I understand and I realize that there are many other opportunities out there. There are places where one could make more money. But if you're talking about significance or impact, I think that teaching is a place where you can have a significant impact on many people.
The high school that I went to was trying to integrate. It was a Catholic high school. They were trying to integrate. So they took students from the elementary schools and created a middle school in the high school. And they brought in African-American teachers to deal with us as inner city youth, because they really weren't quite ready for that yet. And so they brought in an African-American teacher along with African-American female teachers, and that was my first experience. But again, the influence was very great. I saw someone who looked like me, respectful, professional, and it opened up the door that teaching could be a possibility.
And an African-American teacher is not only good for African-American children. African-American teachers are good for all children because it gave my white students a different idea of who a black man was. I wasn't one who was wearing jeans down past my waist and tennis shoes all the time. I was a professional male, and this was sometimes the only professional male students from the inner city had an opportunity to see. So that's the key of being a teacher, being out there and being a role model for these students so they can see they can be something else rather than what they usually see.
I didn't realize how much of an effect I had on the African-American males in high school. As I am a music teacher, plays the piano really well, a lot of those students were aspired to perform. I had kids who wanted to come to my classroom and go into the practice room and work on their skills as pianists. A lot of them wanted to sing. I would sing a lot. Keeping up with the songs of today, the students were aspired to do more.
I was an African-American male that went through college, that obtained a master's degree, but yet and still I grew up in a community where I knew I could still reach the students and the people there simply because of the fact that I was a grounded individual. I never took myself and went so far out of my own network to where I couldn't relate to them anymore. And I think that's a very important thing is relationships, and if a person feels like you really understand my struggle, because it really doesn't come down to even a person who's a 4.0 student or has all of these different accolades and awards and whatnot. If you can't relate to people, if you can't relate to children, and they know instantly if you can or if you can't, then you're not going to be effective.
I was at Carrick High School this past school year. I teach second grade, but I was at Carrick High School because we had to take our children up there for a program. And there's this young man there, he was a teenager. He was probably like 17, 18, maybe 17. And he kept looking at me, and I looked back at him, and he was an African-American man, and he looked at me kind of seriously and I said, "How are you?" And he said, "Mr. Gresham." I said, "Hey," and I knew the face, but I didn't know who he was. He said, "Remember you taught me in first grade at Elliot, and you used to do this, that, and the third, and you would jump on the desk, and you would do this. Oh, I used to love that." But so now, and this was a nice-sized young man. Remember at first he's kind of looking at me, but my father used to say, so when we moved to Elizabeth, we were the first black people on our street, okay? And every time people drive up and down the street, white people, my father would wave. I said, Dad, why are you waving at those people? They don't know you. He said, son, eventually they're either going to have to say, you know, quit waving at me, or they're just going to smile and wave back. He said, it's a lot easier to wave back than it is to tell someone to quit waving at me or stop and ask why. Now when I go to Elizabeth, no kidding, every car that goes up and down the street blows a horn and waves. So, you know, these things you carry throughout life. Same thing with the student who I taught back in first grade. He just remembers those things. You know, and so just knowing that he had good experiences with. And I said, so what are you doing now? I'm getting ready to go to college, I'm getting ready to do this. My mom saw me, my dad saw me. Just knowing that. And so again, going back to having those high expectations and believing that they can do it, they will do it.
I love being in contact with the kids in my classroom, at least at this stage in my life. And that was big for me. And the personalities and, like I said, the connections, and probably the biggest reward for me has been the students coming back year after year, and they talk about the different impacts that you've made on your life. And for me, like I said, that is just, it's so powerful, because I enjoy what I do as well. I enjoy teaching the academics, but the conversations and the different things in which you get to have with those kids, if this is truly a profession that you want to do, and people is kind of who you want to reach, and children, teaching is the profession to be in.
See, one of the things we have to understand is that when we have an influence, we know that in some cases it will be immediate, where the student may have a light bulb moment. It's like, oh, I get it now, I get it now. And I'm like, yeah. And you're gonna get a lot more after that. Others is like when you are a parent. You're in a position to influence and all this kind of stuff, but you really don't see it until they leave. And so I'm often asked, what was my greatest experience with my students? And I have to tell them I haven't had it yet. It's really not going to be there until I retire. Okay, we have to be at the top of the pyramid where all is said and done, and we're able to look back on, like Mr. Holland's opus. And no, he really didn't get it in terms of his overall influence until his students came back and said, because of you, I am who I am.
It's interesting because, you know, as a teacher, you'll often have whole families of kids. So you'll have like all the siblings in a particular family. And just this last semester, I had this one young lady, and I had her in 9th grade, and it was a tumultuous relationship between the two of us, let's say. And so I had her as a senior in my sociology course. And one day after class, she says, you know, my brother, who I had years earlier, is just home from college, and he wanted me to tell you that your class helped best to prepare him for college, and she just, you know, wanted to extend his thanks. And it was kind of interesting because, you know, here this student that I knew as a young adolescent girl had really grown up into be a really nice young woman, and to sort of see that change was cool. But then to also hear that her older brother had gone on to college and had done well, and I had played some small part in that. That's pretty cool.
I remember as a young man in elementary school, I attended an elementary school that was primarily Caucasian. And as an African-American student, I can remember the day, the very first day, that I first saw an African-American teacher. And all of the black students were very excited, and I can remember us, you know, talking among ourselves, you know, kind of pointing down the hall saying, there he is, there he is. And I think that made a very significant impact upon us, because I think teachers are very important in our lives.